We begin tonight at the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, where the Federal High Court there has refused the bail application filed by 5 suspected Al-Shabaab members accused of carrying out a deadly attack on the St. Francis Catholic Church in Ondo State, southwest Nigeria. In his ruling, Justice Emeka Wite declared the bail application incompetent, ruling that the defendants were not listed on the motion paper as required by law. The judge also upheld the arguments of the prosecution, ruling that the defendants may abscond, interfere with witnesses and evidence, and pose a risk to society if granted bail. While granting accelerated hearing, Justice Wite adjourned the case to October the 16th.
Well, today we are very happy that their bail application has been denied, and rightly so. We are happy with the judge for agreeing with our position that terrorists or terror suspects should not be allowed to roam our society. And the reason is because we have witnesses that we need to protect, as well as the fact that they may abscond if they are allowed to go out on bail. So we are very happy with what has happened today in court. Moving on from now, we are going to conduct this trial expeditiously, as the presidential directive was given to us by the DG of the DSS. He has informed us that this trial must be carried out expeditiously, and that is what we are going to do. On the next adjourned date, we are ready and willing to fire on all cylinders, because we are comfortable and confident with the quality of evidence that we have against the suspect.
For a lawyer with the standing, you know, with this standing in the job, we always look at it from 2 faces. Whichever it comes, you know, they know more than us. That's why we call them the wisdoms. They know more than us, so it has a reason for ruling that way. But remember, the matter has not finished. We are just starting. So we are moving on. This is not an issue of conviction. No. To the understanding of the judge, he says, no, they can't release these people now. They might be released tomorrow, but not now. If you are in the open court, you will understand. I pleaded with the court, please give me 3 days consecutively. Let them bring their witnesses. Then we finish this matter. They've been there for almost 4 years. Let's finish this case.
The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has expressed concern over the growing early campaigns by politicians in clear violation of extant laws. While the Commission says the practice poses threats to the country's democracy, it claims it cannot punish the parties who have started campaigning early for the 2027 general election. INEC Chairman Mahmood Yakubu told a stakeholders meeting in Abuja that the Electoral Act prohibits campaigns earlier than 150 days before voting, but it does not set penalties for breaking this rule. He added that while politicians are holding rallies, putting up billboards and running ads ahead of the legal period, INEC's hands are tied because the law only fines campaigns within 24 hours before election day. Let's unpack this issue with a constitutional lawyer, Jide Ologu, who is with me in the studio. Thank you very much for coming.
It's my pleasure.
We are also joined by election observer and political analyst, Achike Chude. Thank you for joining us tonight as well. Let me just start with you, Mr. Achike. What does the INEC chairman mean when he said the commission is constrained to act when political parties or politicians violate extant laws with the early campaigns? He actually provided a perspective which I would like you to expand on.
Well, the INEC chairman seems to be giving us the impression that if they were not constrained by law in terms of the punitive actions that will be carried out against violators, you know, that they will willingly go ahead to prosecute such people. That's the implication of that. Obviously, he's not happy with what is going on because he cites reasons why it is not in the best interest of the country. He talks about governance suffering as a result when politicians, especially elected public office holders, should be concentrating on governance and providing the so-called dividends of democracy to the people, they are busy campaigning, and that it distracts them, from their responsibilities. So the impression is that if INEC had that, provision of the law that ensures that such violators will be punished, that they will go ahead and they punish such people. But that is not exactly true. If you look at the records, if you look at what has been going on, there are all manners of violations with regards to elections, before elections, pre-election, even during the process of election itself. Whether it has to do with the buying of votes or the selling of votes, and there are all manners of unwholesome, actions and activities that are at variance with the spirit and the law of the electoral law. You find out that INEC has not exactly been able to do anything about all of these deviations. So it is easy to say, look, if we had the law on our side from the punitive angle, that we would have done that. But the reality is that in other aspects, because if you look at the electoral law, virtually every violation has a punishment attached to it. Some of them involve a jail term. Some of them involve, payment of fines or both, as the case may be. But how many people who have, violated the electoral guidelines during elections? People who cut away ballot boxes, people who are caught, stuffing ballot boxes, people who, are selling votes and buying votes. So some of those people that have been caught, how many of them have been successfully prosecuted by INEC? And look, it is very clear that INEC is not very keen when it comes to such matters. They want to be let off the hook. They don't want to get involved in some of these matters. So of course, they will also tell you that their roles, even in this, is limited, because they are not the ones that will take suspects to court. It is the duty of the police. And so, yeah, go on.
Yeah, you do have a valid point when you talk about the fact that even the ones that they do have authority over, enforcement is an issue. But let me come to you and talk about electoral reforms and review. The National Assembly is currently reviewing our electoral laws, and Mr. Mahmood Yakubu is of the view that the National Assembly will give due consideration to this part of the law, that maybe review it to include punitive measures or recommendations that will compel people to adhere, maybe like the 24 hours before voting. What are your thoughts on that?
Thank you very much. I align myself with the concerns of the chairman of INEC. If you look at Section 94 of the Electoral Act 2022 as amended, Subsection 1 talks about 150 days before election for the campaigns, and it should end 24 hours before the real election. But while we don't have any penalty for the 150 days requirements, there is a penalty of 500,000 naira only for still campaigning within the 24 hours window. And I consider this as very, sickening. And it's a good thing it's coming to the front burner now. And let me say this, INEC itself is a creation of the Constitution. If you look at Section 153 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended, and Section 1 of the Electoral Act 2022 as amended also recognizes the role of INEC. And INEC is to conduct elections, monitor the parties and the activities, campaigns, funding, and of course, carry out necessary redress if we have breaches. But here we are now, INEC is in a state of being lame to enforce sanitizing the electoral processes. And this has given politicians a leeway. But that is not to say that we have a hopeless situation.
Yeah, because that was where I came in when I asked about the electoral reforms and his call for the National Assembly.
That has not really attended to it. But if you go to Section 4 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended, it empowers the National Assembly to make laws for the peace, orderliness, and good government in Nigeria. You see, so they have the power to amend the laws of the land to exercise the power of curbing electoral malpractices. But alas, what did we notice recently? They were moving in the direction of compelling all eligible voters to vote for them without considering the transparency, the credibility of the processes that the chairman is alluding to now. Because one of the key elements of law is sanction. So if you have a law without sanction, you practically do not have a law.
Yeah,
and
that's what Mr. Akpoti-Uduaghan was also talking about, the weakness of INEC in that regard. But I'll come back to you. Hold on to that thought. Let me go back to Mr. Chude and just ask about the enforcement aspect of it. He talked about finance, campaign funding, that these actions by these politicians make it difficult for INEC to, do due diligence, provide that oversight function as to monitor campaign funds. What are the implications of this when we talk about knowing what we spend for election, reducing the cost of campaigns and all of that?
Again, the provisions are very clear with regards to how much different candidates for the various categories of elections should pay, or, should spend. They are not expected. There's a cap for each of these people, from the president to governors to members of National Assembly and State House of Assembly and all that. There's a cap. But the issue is these are caps, that have been exceeded by thousands of percentage points over the years, and everybody knows. In fact, it's not just INEC talking about tracking campaign finances. Civil society organizations have been doing that for quite some time. Okay. Virtually in every election, they have been doing that. And it is very, very obvious that they are spending far in excess of what the law provides. But what exactly has happened? So it's easy for the INEC, chairman to say all of this. But he knows that even when, at the best of times, when they track campaign finance and they see that these caps are being violated, they find themselves incapacitated to do anything about that. And that is exactly what INEC would prefer, if you ask me. INEC would prefer the Election Petition Tribunal to be set up. They have expressed, that desire for quite some time, so that people will not bother them with prosecution of.
Mr. Chude, I'm sorry to interject yet again. I'm told we have barely 2 minutes to wrap up. I'd like Mr. Ulugu to also have his time and talk about the aspect of legalizing some of this punishment and enforcement in 40 seconds, if you can. It's
wise that INEC should lobby the National Assembly. But the big hurdle here is that quite a number of those in the National Assembly may be beneficiaries of these electoral processes breaches. The early campaigns and different kinds of violations. But we need to position this country on the platform of respecting the rule of law. Like I said earlier, the lawmakers should be seen to make the appropriate laws in the land. And those who implement the laws also, talking about the executive, should be ready to implement the laws just as much as the judiciary should be diligent and allow justice in their own part of the ecosystem. And if we do this, I think it will send a signal to those who just want to dance on the face of the rule of law that no, you cannot do that, because we are not in a lawless society.
Indeed, hopefully we're not. Thank you very much, Mr. Ulugu, for being here. Mr. Chude, thank you for obliging us as well. Coming up tonight, INEC formally recognized David Mark as new ADC national leader. We have details of the story and much more when we return. You're watching Tonight on News Central. A reminder of our top stories. Federal High Court in Abuja denies bail application to Al-Shabaab terrorists involved in Ondo State Church massacre. INEC expresses concern over growing early campaigns by political parties, says practice threatens Nigeria's nascent democracy. And US President Donald Trump blames Russia for drone incursion over Poland, as Moscow claims it had no intention to do so. People's Democratic Party, PDP, has criticized the Senate President Godswill Akpabio over the National Assembly's move to stop Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan from returning to the Senate after the expiration of her 6-month suspension. Senator Akpoti-Uduaghan, who was suspended on March the 6th, had on September the 4th, 2025, reaching to the leadership of the Assembly, notifying them of a plan to resume. However, in a reply signed by the acting clerk to the National Assembly, Dr. Yahaya Danzaria, she was informed that her suspension was still active and tied to a pending case at the Court of Appeal. But the response does not sit well with the senator's party, the PDP, which has now accused the Senate President and the APC-led Senate leadership of attempts to stop Akpoti-Uduaghan from returning to the Senate after serving a 6-month suspension, while also denying the people of Kogi Central Senatorial District a proper representation at the Senate. The Senate is slated to resume from a 2-month recess on September the 23rd. Abba Hikima is a constitutional lawyer, and he joins me now to put this development in proper perspective. Thank you for being here tonight. The Senate does not hold the opinion that Senator Akpoti-Uduaghan has served out her 6-month suspension, despite the fact that it expired on September the 6th. They say the matter is sub judice. Is that right?
Well, I think, permit me by saying that I think the Nigerian Senate is making a mockery of Nigeria's judicial system and Nigeria's rule of law. We're in a democracy, and in democracy, and especially a nascent one, like the one we have in Nigeria, I think that the democracy should be pitied and should be respected also. It was clear before now that this Senator Natasha was suspended for 6 months. Before expiration of this 6 months, she went to a court of law, a federal high court for that matter, which set aside the suspension and voided her suspension, and also directed that she should be returned. She should be allowed to, resume her duty, and that her constituents be represented. This right was denied by the Senate. And then
Mr. Hikimi, I think that, Hikima, there are, I needed to clarify something here, because I seem to have conflicting opinion on the court judgment earlier that apparently seemed to have cleared Natasha to resume her seat. One of the arguments is that the court did not order the Senate. It only asked it to review its rule and the suspension given. So it wasn't like this was an order of the court. Please, could you explain that?
You know, this is not supposed to be an issue that we should be discussing even here, because before now, various members of the House of Reps or the Senate or at state level have been suspended by their respective houses, you know, and they have gone to court before now, and courts have given opinion to the effect that it is unconstitutional, illegal, and unlawful for any lawmaker to be suspended in a representative democracy like the one we practice in Nigeria. And this is also the spirit of the, you know, ruling of the court in this case, as I understand it, because it's not something new. Now, but let's not even dilly-dally so much on that. Now that the 6-month suspension has elapsed, you know, Natasha is supposed to resume her work back in the Senate. Now, claiming that the matter is still sub judice, I think, is a way of flouting Nigeria's constitution and also of misrepresenting the law. The law is clear that where a matter is sub judice, it does not necessarily mean that we cannot, for example, the matter is sub judice right now, we're talking about it. We cannot go into the substance of the matter, we can discuss it, we can take actions about it. That can be done because the matter, the injury was done by the Senate in the first place. So if the Senate likes, they can just withdraw everything, the lawsuits can be withdrawn also, and she resumes back. So this has not been done. So I think citing the sub judice rule, which is very much tried in our Nigeria's constitutional law and jurisprudence, is only a way of hiding behind that rule to continue to break the law. More so that I think they also cited Section 40 of the Senate rules. That particular section is not saying that she cannot be reinstated when a case is pending before the court. Section 40 of the Senate rules is only talking about the fact that an issue cannot be discussed when that issue is sub judice. We're not talking about discussing this issue right now. We're talking about doing the right thing. We're talking about obeying the Constitution. I will give you an example. Section 68 of the Constitution of Nigeria is clear that a senator or a lawmaker can only be suspended on 3 grounds: where he resigns, where he is convicted of an offense, or where he defects from one party to another. You can't find any of these instances here. And so it is clear, and all the legal minds are in agreement that Natasha's suspension is wrong. And I think the Nigerian Senate, as an arm of the government, and as lawmakers for that matter, they should recall her and uphold the rule of law and prove to the international community, the national, Nigerians.
Well, they don't seem to be very influenced with the international community's opinion at this point. If we're going with the response they've given to Natasha's request to return to the Senate. But then you have the People's Democratic Party, her party, coming out strong, saying that she should prepare to get back to office, and that they are also saying that this is something being done against women, an attack on women's rights as it were. What are her options at this time, as well as her party, with the Senate writing back to say she will not, she's not allowed in until the case is properly litigated?
You see, Nigeria's constitution has given the heads of these legislative houses so much power. I will give you some examples. If a lawmaker dies, for example, only the Senate president, if he's a senator or a speaker, can declare his seat vacant. And even where there's a court judgment reinstating a certain person back in the House, or maybe upholding the election of another person who is not the one holding the position at the material time, it takes, the declaration of the head of the House, in this case, the Senate president, for example, to reinstate that person. So the Senate rules and the Nigerian Constitution has given so much power to, the heads of these legislative houses. And I think this is also a juncture in our jurisprudence that should be revisited. I think, for example, in this case, Natasha is the one having, squabbles with the Senate president, and then being the one given so much power to decide whether she comes back or not, I think is a very serious aberration and has pointed out a certain lacuna in our constitutionalism, which should be revisited and amended as soon as possible.
I mean, those visuals were from the last time she made an attempt to get to the National Assembly. Let's also take on this part. Some have even argued that the Senate acted improperly by suspending Senator Natasha while her case was still before the court. Isn't this then a case of double standard if you are citing the same courts now?
That is exactly it. You cannot pick and choose, when to obey the court. Again, I will cite a constitutional provision. Our constitution is clear, and that's why I've been saying that Nigeria has some of the best laws in the world. The problem is that we don't implement these laws. Section 6, for example, is clear that, judicial powers of our courts are binding on all persons and authorities. The Senate, Nigerian Senate, is an authority. It is the court's previous decisions, assuming the court in this case does not even order that Natasha should be reinstated, the previous decisions are binding. They should be respected. It doesn't take anyone, any lawyer, for example, to even interpret these decisions to the Nigerian Senate. These are tried provisions that have been tried for more than 10 years in this country, and the courts have been very consistent. Why do we have to go to court every time an issue comes up that has been dealt with, before now? So I think that's what judicial precedents are. So they can't pick and choose. They are duty bound to show that Nigerians, that as lawmakers, they are also obedient to the law. They are responsible people, and this is only when we can have a democracy and we can call them leaders. And also when they can expect the common man on the street to actually obey the law which these people sit in the chambers to legislate for him.
Mr. Hikima, I guess it's now a waiting game to see what happens when Senate resumes on the 23rd, and of course, if Natasha will attempt again to get into the premises and what comes after that. Thank you very much for speaking with us.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Let's tell you that the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has recognized the new leadership of the African Democratic Congress, ADC, led by Senator David Mark. The leadership of the party has been an issue since the coalition championed by former Vice President Atiku Abubakar and other politicians across the country took over the ADC. While the party leadership and its spokesman, Malam Bolaji Abdullahi, had insisted that there was no cause for alarm, some Nigerians had been worried about the development. Still ahead, protesting Gen Z in Nepal claim demonstrations were hijacked to cause violence. More after the break. As Nigeria heads towards the 2027 general election, more than 3.5 million Nigerians, mostly young people, have already signed up online in just 3 weeks. Despite the enthusiasm at registration centers, voter turnout on election day has been on a steady decline, plunging to just 27% in 2023, the lowest since Nigeria's return to democracy. In this report, News Central's Monobala Gbogbo takes a closer look at the numbers, the voices, and the urgent questions surrounding Nigeria's voter turnout crisis.
In Lagos, Nigeria's commercial heartbeat, millions are registering for the 2027 elections. Led by the nation's youth, over 3.5 million Nigerians have pre-registered online nationwide in just 3 weeks. But history shows many who sign up may not vote, raising a critical question: why the disconnect? With 288,614 complete in-person registration by September 4th. Osun State leads with over 518,000 plus pre-registrations, followed with Lagos with over 440,000. Youths aged 18 to 34 dominate at nearly 65%, and women slightly outnumber men, a sign of civic interest. But will these numbers lead to votes?
Most voters do not trust the system, and this came majorly from the issues has come up from different elections.
Why would somebody wants to go and give away their life because of stake their life because of some people? That itself is another very critical reasons why people oftentimes may register, but yet they will not come out to vote.
Typically, for many Nigerians, they see the voter's card, first of all, as a means of identification.
If you recall what happened in the 2023 election, there were a lot of promises leading up to the election. Oh, technology was going to deliver the best and all of that. And we saw how things turned out on elections day.
This chart reveals a troubling trend. Voter turnout has plummeted from 69% in 2003 to just 27% in 2023. On X, new registrants share optimism, but frustration lingers. Posts questioning the value of voting highlight a trust gap.
Perhaps this may lead to the conversation to also begin to ask, what is the true state of the voter register as we have? Do not also forget that this is a voter register that has been existing since 2010, 2011, when JEGA did another rounds of registration across the country. In 2010, 2011, we had over 75 million that the register captured. I think after that, in the next election, there was a cleanup and the number dropped to about 69 million. Since then, what we keep getting with every election is addition to the numbers that we have.
It takes a lot convincing the average Nigerian to come out to vote. And then when also he comes out and then they start seeing some of these irregularities, the main thing will now be, after all, we said it. Because there is already this strong narrative out there where most people feel their votes don't count.
You agree with me that there's been, different times where we have different orders if a federal court probably can make an order, and a state high court will probably make another order, regarding the same issue. And, this has now caused, people not to trust the system as they should.
So when we have the political will, when we have a good governance system where those who are in the position of power deliberately decided to turn a new leaf, to deliver the goods, to let people have dividend of democracy. So this, of course, would be like a motivation to people coming out to vote.
Democracy's strength lies not in who registers, but in who votes. In Lagos for News Central, Morno Balagudu.
The House of Representatives Committee on Appropriations has met with the Minister of Finance and other key officials to review the implementation and performance of Nigeria's 2024 and 2025 budgets. The session focused on budget performance, grassroots projects, and reforms under the current administration. News Central's correspondent Idong Joseph reports.
For Nigerians, budget implementation often determines whether promises made by the government translate into real projects in their communities. At the National Assembly, lawmakers from the House of Representatives interfaced with the Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning to assess progress.
The committee and the executive have interfaced, and we appreciate what we need to do better.
After a closed-door session that lasted over 3 hours at the House, the minister revealed that the 2024 budget performance stood at about 80%, with its implementation extended till the end of the year. He explains that attention is being given to projects at the grassroots, including roads, irrigation, and other critical infrastructure.
As is customary, we reviewed the budget performance, looked at 2024. Overall, it's around 80%. And as you know, the budget for 2024 was extended by the National Assembly till December, so it is still running. So it is still a work in progress, it's still ongoing. And likewise, we looked at what is happening in 2025, and we put heads together to ensure that particularly the projects that touch the grassroots.
Lawmakers on their part stressed that Nigerians are eager to see progress on the ground, saying that members are closely monitoring performance, insisting that both the 2024 and 2025 budgets must deliver tangible results before the next budget cycle.
Nigerians are really concerned about the budget implementations, which is commanded to the National Assembly. We have engaged with Minister of Finance and Minister of Budget. Both of them acknowledge that, and they have agreed to work so hard so that at least Nigerians can see the progress of the budget.
With the 2024 budget still ongoing and the 2025 budget in motion, stakeholders say that the coming months will be critical for ensuring that allocations translate into developments across the country. In Abuja for News Central, I am Idong Joseph.
Many thanks, Idong. Minister of Works, Dave Umahi, has raised the alarm over worsening structural damages to both the Qatar and Third Mainland bridges, warning that urgent measures are needed to avert disaster. News Centre's Victor Mbadike has more.
The Qatar Bridge, one of Lagos' oldest and busiest links, but what lies beneath is now a source of worry. On an inspection tour of the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway project, Minister of Works Dave Umahi took time to examine the condition of the Qatar Bridge, and the findings, he says, are alarming.
The situation of Qatar Bridge is so critical, and it seems that all stakeholders have agreed that Qatar Bridge is irredeemable. The critical decision we have to take is, since it seems that all stakeholders are at peace that a new Qatar Bridge should be constructed, are we demolishing and following the existing one, or is there any way we can salvage and repair something to be in use why we take a different alignment. We are coming back to Lagos to determine that.
But that's not all. The minister also pointed fingers at human activities making things worse. Roadside trading, illegal parking and heavy-duty trucks overstretching the bridge.
We observe that while we are struggling on how to remedy the Kata Bridge, there are very serious static vehicular routes on the bridge. That is very dangerous. And I observed all over the country that we have, traders and commuters, parking on our roads, parking on bridges. This is very dangerous. And this is the reason why we have frequent damages to our roads and bridges infrastructure.
The minister added that the fate of the carriageway, including the third mainland bridge, which is also under scrutiny, will be decided in no distant time.
The consultants and Beja to put the observation, and we have instruments we use to determine whether the observations are right or wrong. And if the observations are as they have sent to us, then it means that both the ramp and the main axial section of the Kata Bridge, we have to go.
For now, officials say studies and designs are on the way to determine whether the bridge can be saved or must be replaced. Either way, the safety of millions of commuters who rely on it every day is at stake. In Lagos for News Central, Victor Badike.
Outside our shores in Nepal, Gen Z groups spearheading the protest have distanced themselves from the destruction, saying they had been hijacked by opportunists. On Wednesday, Nepal's army deployed patrols across Kathmandu as the nation reels from its worst unrest in decades. The protest against corruption and social media bans escalated into violent clashes on Tuesday, resulting in arson, vandalism of politicians' homes and government buildings set ablaze, including parliament. The Prime Minister resigned amid mounting pressure. A curfew remains in place with the military warning that violence will be punished. Authorities have arrested 27 persons and found 31 firearms. And to one of our headline stories now, U.S. President Donald Trump has blamed Russia for incursion of drones over Poland, saying it violated NATO allies' airspace. Trump did not elaborate on what he meant by the last part of the brief message, but warned at the weekend that he was ready to impose more sanctions on Moscow over its war on Ukraine amid growing frustration with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Trump's cut statement on Wednesday also represented the latest occasion on which he has avoided direct criticism of Putin, whom he hosted for a summit in Alaska in August.
In business, Nigeria, in partnership with Germany and the EU, has launched the €18.3 million European Union Value Chain Expansion for Agricultural Development project to boost agriculture through climate-smart practices, job creation, and, of course, inclusive value chains. Running from 2024 to 2028, the initiative targets cocoa, dairy, tomatoes, and ginger across 7 states, with GIZ implementing alongside federal ministries. Officials say the project will improve food security, create opportunities for youth and women, and reduce reliance on imports, particularly dairy. The EU says the initiative aligns with its global gateway strategy, while Germany describes it as a strategic investment in Nigeria's agricultural future. We also tell you that the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission has secured more than $400 million in decommissioning and abandonment liabilities to ensure safe and sustainable transitions of oil and gas assets. Chief Executive Denga Kolmolafe, represented at a Lagos forum, said the framework draws lessons from costly global divestments and is backed by the Petroleum Industry Act. Recent assets transfers, including NAOC, Tuando and Mobile, to Seplat, applied this model. Since April 2023, NUPRC has approved 94 decommissioning plans worth $4.4 billion alongside environmental remediation commitments, reinforcing Nigeria's drive for transparency and responsible oil asset management. And looking at the stock markets now, the NGX All Share Index advanced for the third straight day this week by 0.41% to close at 140,365.36 points, while market capitalization a bit appreciated by 88.81 trillion naira, reflecting sustained investor appetite for equities. And looking at sectoral performance, we start with the banking sector index, which indicated 0.01% marginal growth, showing cautious trading among lenders after recent rallies. Well, insurance gained 0.11% as speculative plays in penny counters provided mild support. Oil and gas jumped 1.33% on renewed demand for energy stocks, suggesting fresh positioning in the sector. Consumer goods added 0.44%, driven by modest accumulation in food and beverage equities, while industrial goods outperformed with 1.64% in surge, revealing how upbeat market sentiment remained as investors rotated into growth-supportive sectors. And that's it on business. I am Lekon Onobanjo. We'll bring you sports news in a bit. To stay with us.
Umar Ayola and Khadijat Musa emerged champions at the second Atonda Musa Under-15 National Table Tennis Championship held at Lagos Country Club, Ikeja. Umar triumphed 3-1 over his younger brother Usman in the thrilling boys final, while Musa edged Chineye Okafor 3-2 in the girls category, extending their dominance after the Efunkoya Cup rivalry. The two-day event, sponsored by table tennis legend Atonda Musa in partnership with the Lagos State Table Tennis Association, drew officials, fans and former champions. Musa, a former National African and Commonwealth champion, pledged his continued support for the competition to nurture young talents and secure its place in the national calendar. The Nigeria Football Federation has distanced itself from a press release that singled out captain William Troost Ekong and forward Cyril Dessers for criticism after the Super Eagles' one-one draw against South Africa in the 2026 World Cup qualifier. The controversial statement, circulated under the Federation's Communications Department, accused the duo of poor performances in the Group C clash in Bloemfontein. NFF General Secretary Mohamed Sanusi clarified that the Federation did not authorize the release and reaffirmed support for the players, stressing the need for collective responsibility in both victory and defeat. He added that the NFF is investigating the source of the statement. Nigeria's draw leaves them in a difficult position with 11 points from 8 qualifying matches. Oyo State has approved the hosting of Nigeria's Under-20 women's national team, the Falconets, in Ibadan ahead of their FIFA Under-20 Women's World Cup qualifier against Rwanda. The return leg clash is set for Saturday, September 27th at the Lekon Salami Stadium. The State Executive Council, led by Acting Governor Abdulrahim Adebayo Alawal, allocated 110 million naira for logistics, security, accommodation, and feeding. Officials said the support will provide a conducive environment for the team's preparations while promoting sports development and youth empowerment in line with Governor Seyi Makinde's roadmap. The government called on Ibadan residents and sports fans to rally behind the Falconets as they aim to secure Nigeria's qualification. And that's all on Sports News tonight. I'm Okweoluwa Adebari. Entertainment is next with Adewo.
Now for the latest in entertainment. Hi, Adewo.
I'm good. How are you doing, Felicity?
I'm great.
Well, entertainment is all about controversy. Well, let me give you the updates quickly. Now, Afrobeats singer Seun Kuti has stirred debate by claiming Afrobeats isn't a real genre, but rather a broad label for African pop music. In an interview, Seun argued that artists freely experiment with styles such as dancehall, blues, pop, and amapiano, demonstrating that Afrobeats lacks strict boundaries. He added that Nigerian music executives don't treat it as a defined genre either, instead encouraging versatility. Now, rapper Vector, also on the show, noted that Afrobeats could one day be recognized as a genre if it implements its elements, I beg your pardon, are properly documented, much like Fela's original Afro beat. Now, Felicity, this conversation started off because recently Tyler, the South African, won the MTV VMAs for Best Afrobeat Song. And Nigerians were not having it that how would a South African win an Afrobeat award? And now the controversy of where did Afrobeat originate from? What's going on? Are we losing it to the world? What do you think?
He does have a point. It's a blend of various elements.
Yes.
So unless it is refined, like rapper Vector said, it will still be open to all.
Okay, well, that's true then. Well, let's quickly run off as Hilary Duff, for those of you who are fans, is officially making her music comeback after a decade away. On Tuesday, Atlantic Records announced the 37-year-old star has signed with the label, sharing the news with fans on Instagram. Alongside new music, now Duff also revealed an upcoming docu-series, Because That's What Dreams Are Made Of, directed by Sam Wrench, who held Taylor Swift. The Eras Tour, that's what he did there. Now the series will follow her return to the studio while, juggling family life. Duff, who rose to fame in Disney's Lizzie McGuire, became a pop sensation with her 2003 album Metamorphosis. After 10 years away, she's ready to reclaim her spot. And like I said, to all Hilary Duff fans, well, she's back to serve us good music. Well, that's all we have on entertainment tonight, by the way.
And that's all the news we have for you tonight. We'd love to hear from you. Please send us your eyewitness report on the number showing now on your screen. You can follow us on all social media platforms as well. We are at News Central TV. You can choose to watch us live on DSTV channel 422, GoTV channel 23, Star Times channel 274, Avro TV, and on YouTube. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.